It was my first year at university. I had just finished unpacking all my things in my room, and my family had left. Later that same day, my roommate finally arrived, and from the start, I knew this guy was the most socially inept person I had ever met. I introduced myself as Alex, extending my arm for a handshake. He paused, looked at my arm as if he didn't understand it first, then laughed and said, "Oh," and gave me an almost limp handshake. I had to ask him for his name since he didn't even tell me when we shook hands. It was Ryan. I tried to make small talk, but he only answered my questions with yes or no, occasionally laughing or smiling awkwardly. Within minutes, we were both sitting on our beds with our laptops, not talking. I was annoyed and planned to request a different roommate. Anyone would be better than Ryan, I thought. Ryan was just a really awkward guy, but I soon learned he was much more than that. I met some of the other guys on my floor, and they seemed nice, so that was good. I returned to my dorm after exploring the campus the first night, and found Ryan still in the same position he was in when I left. I said, "What's up, Ryan?" and he didn't respond. It was 10 o'clock, and I had nothing to do, so I turned off the lamp on my side of the room and went to bed. However, I didn't fall asleep soon. Ryan was on his laptop until 4 in the morning. When he finally closed his laptop, I fell asleep pretty quickly, but I woke up within the hour. The blinds in our room had been opened, and the moonlight now made everything visible, including Ryan sitting by his bed looking at me. I sat up, rubbed my eyes, and said, "Ryan, what the hell are you doing?" He whispered, "Sorry," and lay down. The next morning, I woke up to find that Ryan had already gotten up. It felt like it was the first time he had left the room. It was Saturday, the first Saturday of the year, which meant orientation and all the campus festivities. During the orientation, as my group walked through the school gardens, I heard a couple of students ahead of me saying, "What is that guy doing there?" I saw who they were talking about. It was Ryan, literally sitting on the ground behind a group of bushes, rubbing the bark of a tree with his hand. The orientation leader didn't notice. Otherwise, I'm sure she would have said something. I just walked by without saying anything, eventually telling the two guys I overheard that he was my roommate, as a way to start a conversation and maybe make friends. They apologized to me. None of us really knew if it was appropriate to laugh or not, but we did. I made friends with those two guys, and we planned to meet up that night. I also learned when I returned to my dorm that the school had found another roommate for me. Things seemed to be improving quickly. I left the room that night to meet up with the two guys I met, and when I returned, Ryan was sitting in the desk chair facing the door. I said, "Oh hey, what's up?" And he replied, "Nothing," very directly. I sat on my bed, opened my laptop, and realized I forgot to lock it. I also realized that all my emails had been opened, emails I was pretty sure I hadn't even read, and a bunch of my folders had been opened. Ryan must have snooped through my laptop. When I asked him if he did, he responded, "No," very loudly, half a second after I finished my question. I could read him like a book. This strange guy was literally going through my computer when I wasn't around. I knew he did it, but I didn't confront him. I was ready to go to bed, so when I got into bed to look for my pajamas, I felt like my clothes had also been moved. I knew I would be leaving for good the next day, so I didn't say anything. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of a zipper. I sat up and saw Ryan on the floor going through my bag. I turned on the lamp and confronted him about it. He pretended not to know anything, saying he thought he had his toothbrush by mistake. It was the closest thing to wit he had shown up until that point. Still, I knew he was lying and that something was wrong with him, so I couldn't confront him physically. The next day, I met my new roommate in the same building, and everything went well. On Sunday night, after having a decent conversation with my new roommate, who wasn't a social expert but was much better than Ryan, we both turned off the lights and went to bed. For the third night in a row, I woke up at an odd hour of the night to a strange noise. It was a weird clicking sound, not constant, but I heard it at least twice every 20 seconds. I got up hoping to find something innocent, like a heavy bag pressing on a weak floorboard, or even a mouse, but upon inspecting the room, I realized the sound was coming from the other side of the door. The nightlight in the common area was always on, so when I looked through the peephole, I could see the scalp of the person standing on the other side of our door. They were looking down, so I couldn't see their face, but now that I was paying attention, I realized the tiny clicking noises were coming from the doorknob. I was sure the person was trying to open the door. I dialed the number for the campus police department, and they arrived in less than 5 minutes to the common area, and only then did I feel safe to open the door. I found the officers with Ryan in handcuffs. I had a feeling it was him. I told them everything, that he was my former roommate who was going through my stuff, so I switched dorms only to find him trying to break into my new dorm. They took him away. I don't know what happened to him after that, but I never saw him again. He was either suspended for the semester or expelled. I got through the rest of my years at university like anybody else. However, the nightmarish experience I had with Ryan still pops up in my mind every now and then. This happened during the first week of classes in my freshman year at Cedar Valley University. I was just starting to feel comfortable with my roommate, who was determined to join a fraternity. Rush week was starting the following week, although the parties began on Thursday of the first week. My roommate didn't want to go alone because it would be harder to meet people, so he wanted me to go with him. I gladly agreed, even though I had no interest in joining a fraternity, but I did want to attend parties. After all, I was at a university known for its parties. My roommate wanted to go to a fraternity party on Thursday, and then to others at different fraternity houses on Friday and Saturday. That Thursday night, we headed to one of the lower-ranked fraternities. I'm pretty sure it was an underground one, but his logic was to have a backup fraternity in case the more prestigious ones didn't accept him. The fraternity house was very far from campus, in a more run-down area of downtown. We arrived at a corner house, and if it weren't for the loud music and cars parked everywhere, we would never have guessed it was a fraternity house. It literally looked like they settled for the first house they found. We knocked on the door and were greeted by a short, chubby guy in a white t-shirt holding a plastic cup. His shirt had sweat stains under the arms and on the belly. He invited us in. The party was in a horribly dimly lit room with probably 60 guys crammed into the living room. It was unbearably hot, and to make things worse, I think I saw at most 2 girls at the entire party, neither of them attractive. I gave the party a good 25 minutes, talking with one foreigner after another, all giving off antisocial vibes. Finally, I signaled to my roommate to get ready to leave, but a large group of guys by the door made us decide to wait a little longer to avoid the awkwardness of leaving early. I kept drinking the cheap beers they were serving. I think I had 5 cups before feeling the effect. A heavy-set guy approached me with a small bottle in his hand and handed it to me with a smile, saying it would get me drunk. I fake laughed and thanked him, hoping he would leave, but he just stood there watching me as if waiting for me to drink, so I did. It was maybe 2 shots of some strong liquor. The guy started making conversation with me, and every time I hinted that I wanted to leave, he tried to keep me in that one-sided conversation. Things started to get very blurry quickly. I remember suddenly feeling dizzy, and the room seemed to get darker. That was the last thing I remember before waking up in a dark room lying on a bed. I could hear the muffled music behind closed doors, so I knew I was still in the fraternity house. It was a very dark room, but I could still make out some furniture and a small closet door, not much else. But even with the loud music, I heard the sound of a plastic bag being crushed in the closet, as if someone had stepped on it by mistake. I ran out of that room and down the stairs, back to the crowded living room. I found my roommate and pushed him toward the front door, passing by a group of guys still standing in a circle next to it. During the ride back to campus, I told my roommate I had been drugged. He almost called the police, but I told him it would be foolish and pointless. Then my roommate asked me an awkward question, if I had been taken advantage of. I didn't feel any pain, and my clothes were the same, so I assumed not. When I checked the time, I realized I had only been unconscious for about 10 minutes before waking up. Whatever the guy gave me must have been a dud or something, thank God. That was my college experience attending an underground fraternity party, and it remains the scariest experience of my life. During my first semester of sophomore year, I had a single dorm room. It was in the corner of the floor, a bit secluded from the rest of the rooms, as it was in its own section. You had to turn a corner to see the door. It was nice because I could talk with friends on my floor, invite people over, and still have privacy to study or sleep. A few weeks into the semester, while studying for a biology exam, the silence was interrupted by a noise. It took me a moment to realize it was a light tapping on the door, so faint that I almost didn't hear it. I shouted, "Come in," but the door didn't open. So I got up to open it, and no one was there. I walked to the corner to look down the hallway, and there was no one. Obviously, someone was playing a prank on me. I went back to my bed and continued studying, this time leaving the door open. No one returned. The next night, a few minutes after turning off the lamp to go to sleep, the tapping on the door returned. Only this time it was much louder, more like a knock. I asked, "Who is it?" And again the knocking stopped, and no one answered. I quickly got out of bed and opened the door to see that my small private hallway was empty again. I ran the 4 meters from my door to the corner to look down the main hallway of the floor, but there was no one. The next morning, I asked some of the other guys in the dorm if they had been messing with me, but they all said no. The following night, I woke up after having been asleep for 3 hours. Someone was knocking on my door again, this time louder than ever. I had trouble deciding whether to open the door or not. With a bit of courage, I got up and opened the door. No one was there, as I expected, but this time I ran down the small hallway, isolating my room, and as I turned the corner, I saw the back of someone disappearing behind the opposite corner of the hallway. I ran as fast as I could down the hallway, and as I turned to the next hallway where I saw the person a few seconds earlier, I saw a door at the end of the hallway closing. It wasn't a room, it was a bathroom. I felt ready to confront whoever was joking around, so I pushed the bathroom door open with force. The light was off. I turned it on, expecting to see someone hiding there, but I didn't see anyone. My first instinct was to check the 2 bathroom stalls, which were both closed. I got on my knees and looked under the stalls. 2 heavy black boots could be seen from underneath one of the stall doors. I took a deep breath and pushed the stall door open. I was confused. There were the boots sitting on the floor, but no person wearing them. Then I heard a creepy laugh, not a feminine or childlike one, but a laugh I could only imagine coming from a very old, crazy man. For some reason, my confidence vanished, and I was terrified. So I ran back to my room and shut the door. I jumped into bed and started texting all my friends, but they were all asleep. The tapping happened once more that night, and I ignored it. It went on for about 20 seconds before whoever it was finally gave up. I spoke to everyone on my floor the next day. No one else heard any knocking, and everyone swore they weren't pranking me. Everyone seemed sincere. I don't know why this person chose to harass me or who they were. Judging by the boots and the laugh I heard, it was an older man, and that unsettles me. I attended Maplewood University for 2 years and quickly made a big group of friends. We went out every weekend. One Friday night in October, when we didn't have any big plans, I decided to hang out with two close friends at the campus nature park near the lake. There was a small clearing on the opposite side of the lake that was ideal for bonfires, as it was far from the view of the school or campus security. Sometimes, students would come here to smoke marijuana, drink, and do other drugs, but it wasn't a well-known spot on campus, which we liked. That night, we brought several beers, lit a bonfire, and relaxed, having what we called a bro chat. As the night went on, time seemed faster due to the effect of the alcohol. At one point, we were laughing so hard that one of my friends was rolling on the ground among the leaves. That's when my other friend stopped laughing and said, "Shh." We all went silent and listened to the crunching of leaves and branches in the distance. We threw our bottles into the lake since we were under 21, and it wasn't uncommon for campus police to patrol the woods on weekends to catch students doing drugs. We tucked the rest of the beers into a backpack. I was moderately drunk, so my paranoia was higher than usual, probably the same for my friends. The fire exposed us to anyone passing through the woods, but this place was so unknown and far from campus that it was rare to find anyone else there. It seemed like there was only one person in the distance. The sound of a branch snapping not too far away freaked us all out. None of us were really confrontational, so we lacked someone with the confidence to yell out to whoever was there. Instead, we all just sat in silence, shushing each other. We heard what seemed to be someone or something circling us, or at least walking in a C shape around our little campsite. It literally started to feel like we were in the movie, The Blair Witch Project, because those sounds in the near distance, like cracking branches and leaves crunching on the ground, kept echoing over to our campsite. At first, we laughed about it, but I soon became terrified of who or what it could be. Suddenly, a huge thud made all three of us jump. At first, I didn't understand, even though I saw what caused the sound. It took me a few seconds to digest the fact that a branch had been thrown into the center of our bonfire. One of my friends took off running while my other friend and I sat there looking at each other, half laughing, half concerned. We didn't know if it was some kind of joke or not. Then, my friend let out a scream of pain as he was struck in the face by another branch. I grabbed the backpack, helped my friend up off the ground, and we ran back toward our dorm. When we reached the road separating the nature reserve from our dorm, we stopped to catch our breath, but whoever was out there proved to be following us when we heard footsteps coming closer to the road. We continued to run back to the dorm, and when we got back to our floor, we found our other friend already in his room. We looked out of his room window down to the woods and saw someone pacing back and forth near the woods, and every time a car passed, they would walk back into the woods. Eventually, whoever it was went back into the woods for good, never to be seen by us again. We continued our drinking session in the dorm room, and within 15 minutes, we were all laughing again. It wasn't until the next morning that we realized how terrifying that experience actually was. We never went back into the woods after dark again.